I wore my, it's kind of cool. I wore my black hood because, well, it's cold tonight in Texas. It's going to reach maybe 25 degrees, so that's pretty cold if you're a Texan. But today we're going to talk about, I just heard the tragic news. Actually, my mother told me that Keith Flint, once the punkish lead singer and dancer of the group The Prodigy, was found dead of an apparent suicide. This has become suicide has become a problem in America. Opioid crisis, just a general lack of, I don't know, some kind of, even successful people seem to be killing themselves at a really rapid rate. You would think that the people that would kill themselves would be like failures, like they failed their life. They failed to achieve a degree. They failed to be in positive romantic relationships. Maybe they were hit by the, I don't know, dot-com bubble, 2008 recession. They just never recovered. You think it would be people like that would be offing themselves in greater numbers. So people are often mystified when these people that are middle age and they are very successful when you hear of their suicides. And it was pretty shocking when my mom told me today because as far as the Keith Flint that I knew, the punk guy growing up in my early to mid-teens and beyond, was a very charismatic, positive guy. A guy with explosive energy, explosive positivity, a punkish, rebellious attitude. So I think, here's I have the Prodigy VHS, old electronic punks. So this is the guy who committed suicide, Keith Flint. I don't know yet. They just said it flashed upon the screen whether it was a suicide by gun, suicide by overdose. You can do suicide by neglect too, just doing too much drugs or alcohol. Just your body can just give out. The organs can give out that way, but also you can just do it the old-fashioned way and just deprive yourself of oxygen and go hang yourself. And that's a way that unfortunately a lot of people like Robin Williams and Kate Spade, Anthony Bourdain, people like that have gone out so far. I think I said Chris Cornell already. Robin Williams, Chris Cornell, Anthony. There's too many people to mention. But these are very successful people. They're people with movies and their own bands and their own brand of clothes, and some of the opportunities they had and they've achieved have been very, or not the normal kind of experience that somebody would have. There was a electronic dance craze at the end of the 1980s and the beginning of the 1990s. Besides grunge music from Seattle, which was a break from the 80s mainstream rock and roll music and the new wave movement, which was big in the 1980s, there was a big time dance movement, and this came out of England. And the Prodigy, led by Liam Howlett, the principal songwriter, was one of the leaders of that movement. It was Liam Howlett, the mastermind from Essex, I think it's Essex or Braintree, England. And he does a lot of drum and bass and what they would call techno electronica music from the early 90s. And along with Moby, Orbital, and other such pioneers of the genre, the Prodigy were a huge influence on dance and drum and bass music, electronica, and then they they went into an industrial and mainstream success. They found, I guess they were successful in the club scene in England and kind of underground for a while. They had the Prodigy Experience came out in 1991, and then I think by 1996 they had the Music for the Jilted Generation, which was a lot heavier and more industrial direction. Even a sample, they even had a sample from Nirvana. The Prodigy loved Nirvana. So they went heavier, and they were going more and more industrial. Finally, through the genius of Liam Howlett and his team, they created an image and they marketed the electronic punks to the entire world of the burgeoning internet and interest in technology and computers and melding that with society. in addition, a punk and rebellious attitude. So it kind of created its own like new kind of electronic underground, if you will, using dance and techno as kind of a backdrop mixed with industrial. So by 1996, the Prodigy's third album, The Fat of the Land, came to America, and it was on MTV and everywhere. One of the images burned in people's brains from when I was 15 or 16 was Keith Flint with crazy fucking hair, jumping at the screen, cursing and raving. Breathe the pressure, come play my games, I'll test ya. And a black guy with tattoos, a rapper called MC or Maximum Reality. In addition, they had another dancer, big tall guy, Leroy Thornhill. And, of course, Liam Howlett was the brains behind the group, wrote primarily all the songs. Even though I think some of the members did learn instruments and did participate later in the songwriting process. Definitely, Keith Flint was a singer and did a lot of the punk kind of tracks and jam outs. Most notably, his singing on Firestarter and also Breathe is very revolutionary for the time. Particularly, most of note, since I can't say that word right now, the temperature's dropping very rapidly. Were Firestarter and also Breathe were the biggest singles out of the UK. So the Prodigy were huge for a time in England and America. Their later output wasn't as successful, and they were never really able to. They could only nostalgically capitalize on their success, and they kept on touring and producing albums all throughout the 21st century. And I mean, Duran Duran doesn't give a shit if they can still, pack venues, and if they can fuel off nostalgia until it's all over with. And the Prodigy were pretty much burning in the 21st century off all their 1990s nostalgia that it could. So it's really sad to learn that Keith Flint has committed suicide at 49 years old. There's really an epidemic of these really successful guys killing themselves at around middle age for some reason. I know getting old and decrepit and sick and dying anyway, a lot of people would rather have control over their lives. That's a big thing, that people want to have control of their lives, and there's a lot of technological and social changes that technology has brought upon us and is still going to affect the future, like artificial intelligence, for instance. So there's a lot of things that people aren't going to be able to deal with that well. And there may be even in the future discovery of aliens and just a lot of stuff that's going to really rapidly change society in a way that's going to be unrecognizable for previous generations. And some people are going to be able to cope with that. Robots flying around and aliens flying in spaceships and discovery of wacky civilizations and worlds beyond our imagination. I mean, some people are not going to be able to cope with that very well if they're from the old days. Whatever was going on with Keith Flint, rest in peace. Thank you for being a friend, at least musically and throughout the years. I love buying the albums. Love buying the records, electronic punks. Unfortunately, I was never able to see a show live, or I just was content with jamming the records. The Prodigy music is going to be mostly known as a dance movement, a kind of nightclub kind of phenomenon that people party to and dance to. I mean, of course, people can be just jamming Prodigy music in the background. Some of it sounds very good. The only complaint my friends have is that it's very repetitive, but I think a lot of the repetitive grooves are meant for the dance floor. They're not really meant for. You can be jamming at home or cruising around, and it's nice and noisy to annoy old people and your parents, but it's not like maybe where you listen to Moby and he's very classically trained and he makes entire luscious tracks and stuff. It's more for grinding on the dance floor. And for dancing. It's basically a dance, music inspired, and they had breakthrough success in America, but they were unable to build on that success to greater heights, unfortunately. Um, but they still stayed touring and making money, so it's not like they were unsuccessful. They were massively successful, and they just kind of waned off, like sort of like a somebody, they reach the pinnacle of their potential, and then it's like action potential and physics. It just goes down naturally, like gravity. There's nothing you can really do about it except just ride the wave and do the best you can if you're surfing through life, coasting. Um, so rip Keith Flint of the late great of the Prodigy, and it's really sad news to hear that all these 1990s stars, either through sickness or uh, suicide, and all of these icons are dying away. Everybody dies. Nobody wants to get decrepit and shitting on themselves and in a wheelchair. But the reality is that if you live long enough, that's what's going to happen. So either you deal with your shit or you don't. So it's basically, as an Alice in Chains song says, it's your decision. It's your choice. How you want to play your life, what you want to do with it. But it's really an enigma to me that so many losers stay alive. People that haven't accomplished much in their lives stay alive long, and a lot of these really accomplished people kill themselves and take themselves out early. I mean, could it be they just don't want to get elderly? Could that be a reason, or is it an epidemic of rapidly changing technological times? Or could it just be simply a genetic problem with anxiety and depression, which is like a plague upon humankind? So, whatever the case may be, it's another tragic loss right after the loss of Luke Perry. Luke Perry is going to be all over the news. Keith Flint's probably going to get, unfortunately, a lot of sound blurbs, and they'll probably show some clips of like Firestarter and Breathe and stuff from the Prodigy 1996 heyday when I was 16 years old, but I doubt it's going to be a really loving worldwide tribute. I hope it is a great outpouring and that people remember, but I have a photographic memory, so I remember all this stuff for the most part, at least as accurately as I can with such a heavy and complex um, information stream as life often is. All right, so the temperature's dropping. We're going to have a hard freeze, 25 degrees in Texas tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and go inside, get warm, get some food. But yeah, as I said before, tragic. Keith Flint. Rest in peace, brother.